all of my Periscope and Google friends, although I have to admit, I know that Periscope folks are going to be hitting this up tonight, and it's going to be really, really good. We've got my buddy Ryan Bolello, who is the power networking guy. He's the dude that's going to help you and help me get noticed by major influencers. And so I wanted to have Ryan a conversation with him just to introduce you guys to him if you haven't met him yet. I think most of you guys have been in his scopes. They're just awesome. He does a great job. And so Blake says hi, Ryan. I don't know, Ryan, are you in the room? Are you in the Periscope room?
Yes, I am. I'll just make sure people see me.
So Ryan will say hello so you guys can see him there in Periscope. So we're launching this on Google Hangouts so we can record it and we can make the replay available later for Periscope and for Google Hangouts. But if you guys have questions, feel free to enter them into the Periscope comment field, and but wait till we ask for them, because I'm going to be checking them out while Ryan answers questions. But while I'm talking, no one's going to be really looking at them. So just heads up, you guys interact with one another, ask questions. If you know the answer to a question that gets asked in the feed, go ahead and answer it, because that's one of the things that I love about Ryan is he understands that everybody has something to bring to the table. And so not only will he connect with you with major online influencers, but he'll also connect you with people who are right in your niche and be like, hey, you and you should hang out. So Ryan, man, I'm super stoked and way glad. This is like double dose because you were on my podcast last week and that'll be going live soon. And now we're doing this. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just can't get enough of you, Dave. It's good to chat with you on almost every medium possible that the internet has ever made. So I don't know if there's too many left that you and I have not connected on.
That's MySpace?
Yeah, maybe Ello might be another one. I haven't got any snaps from you yet.
Yeah, that's true. I've tried Snapchat and I just haven't figured it out, but that's not why we're here. Ryan, why don't you tell people a little bit about this idea of networking? So if they want to invite their friends to the broadcast, you'll give them a good idea of what we're going to be talking about so they can know whether or not they should be inviting their friends.
Yeah, so we're going to chat a little bit tonight about, I think the word that we hear most often is networking, and there's a lot of power within that, but what I really want to talk about and what we're really going to get into is how can we be strategic in the relationships that we have, and more specifically, how can we be strategic in who we're connecting with, who we're building a relationship with in regards to a vision or a dream or a product or a business that we're building, and how do we connect with the right people? How do we make sure we're interacting, engaging, and building relationships with the right people?
I like that. Building relationships with the right people. And one of the things that I found, man, is that when I first started this idea of networking, I felt a little bit guilty because I'm like, man, am I just using people? Am I just going around trying to find people who are going to benefit me? And what I found very quickly is if that is your intent, and not necessarily that it was mine, but I was still figuring it out. I didn't have guys like you telling me how it should be done or telling me what approach I should take. And I found out very quickly that it's got to be a mutual thing. There's got to be mutual interest, and there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. So, man, first and foremost, let's just talk a little. You were constantly talking about 3 big tips to helping people connect online. And I know you just released that ebook from your website, which I've had a chance to see it. As a matter of fact, I had a chance to design it, and I love it, man. It was really, really good content. I mean, if the content was bad, no matter how much design I put into it, it wouldn't have been good. But I thought it was fantastic. So why don't you tell me a little bit about where this idea, what the 3 major ways to connect are, as much as you want to share there, and where you kind of came up with the idea, how you developed it, how you came to that conclusion.
Well, the idea came from, and you're a fan of Periscope as much as I am, it's just from some of the conversations that I was having from people as they were asking me about, I was talking about tips and tricks, and they're like, oh, I need this and that, and I began to start sharing some of the relationships that I had with people, or some of the connections, even if it was, I know that this person does this well, and I've had some conversation with them about it, they can help you with that. And so the big thing that I think all of us, at least the people in my sphere of influence, the people that I connect with, the online dreamers, the entrepreneurs that I'm connecting with, we all have a big value for influence. We want to influence people with the work that we're doing. We don't want to just show them. We just don't want to make it look pretty. But we want people to act on on our expertise, on what we're creating, on something that we've made, and we want people to say, wow, that's so cool, I want to respond to that. And so I think we all are at a point where we're like, I need someone that can help me get this to the next point, the next level, and how do I do that? And so I began to think through, what are some of the things that I do on a regular basis with influencers. Now, again, these aren't like, I'm not talking about like Nicki Minaj or Justin Bieber or anything like that. I'm not talking about these big, huge ultra, but who are people in my industry or in my niche who are doing things well that I would say I want to connect with them, even if it's just to learn a little bit, even if it's to get a question answered. How do I reach out to them and get past all the noise of everybody else that wants their attention? And so I really boiled it down to these 3 ideas, these 3 little principles, tips, but they're things that I was just doing regularly as I thought back over the last 6 months to a year that I was doing. And so they kind of morphed into these 3 R's. And so the first one is this idea of respond. And so a lot of time influencers, and when I say this, I'm specifically speaking of when you're engaging with them on social media. Obviously, if you meet them face-to-face, you're buying a product of theirs, it might be a little bit different. But on social media, sometimes you get them where they just shoot out a question and they want it answered, and they're like, hey, how do I do this? Or what do you think of that? And they're being very specific in what they want. They want an answer to a very specific thing. And so when I have an opportunity to see an influencer doing that, whether it was something you're working on, Dave, or maybe it's something a bigger, like a Pat Flynn's working on or something like that, they're wanting feedback. I try to be very specific and very detailed in my response to them. I take what they're asking, I mull it over. I don't spend weeks because then the time has passed, but I think, where can I add value back into this person right away? And I give them a detailed answer so that they can hopefully want to say, okay, ooh, he spent some time with that. How can I, maybe I have a follow-up question. Okay, well, what did you mean by that, Ryan? And they respond again. And the conversation goes for a little bit. It may be 2 or 3 tweets, or it may be 1 or 2 lines of an email, but at least I've set myself a lot farther than someone who just gives a general answer of, oh, I wouldn't fix anything, or oh, it's already the greatest product in the world, or oh, it's perfect, don't touch it, or I like everything. They get that all the time. That's not what they're looking for. So responding to an influencer's question with intentionality and being detailed can be a way to kind of get you separated from the group, or separated from all the other noise that's going on.
Really,
the second thing.
Oh, hang on. I really like that, because I've seen that play out, man. I was in a broadcast the other day that Pat Flynn did, and he was just hanging out in a coffee shop. He was like, "Hey, I'm doing this before I go to such and such," and I heard him say, "Ryan Bilello, yeah, hey, no problem." You said something like, "Hey, thanks for the shout out," and he said, "Yeah, hey, man, no problem. I see you in here all the time. It's my pleasure." And so it's one of those deals where responding to what he asks, responding for what he's, the feedback that he's giving, that puts you on his radar. And that radar location then allowed him to kind of take that freedom to say, hey, I'm going to tweet out and tell people to vote for Ryan. So I love that. So, we're getting some hearts. There's a little bit of interaction going on here. Knoxville is doing a really good job of summarizing your content. They say, respond with intentionality and details when influencers ask questions. And I love that. That's a really great summary to what we're talking about here. Does anybody have any questions for Ryan so far about this respond key? Because I think it's so huge. It's one of those deals where, Ryan, you nailed it, man. Like, they're not looking for just, just affirmation and approval. I mean, some might be, but those aren't the heavy influences that we really want to connect with. They're really looking for feedback. They know that you are in their audience. So if anybody has any questions for Ryan about Respond, or if you've seen this work, I mean, feel free to use the comment section. We're looking at it right now, and we'll be able to respond. We'll be able to respond to your question about responding. So, guys, if you're just joining us, my name is Dave Shrine. I'm an entrepreneur, small business owner, and I love helping people get unstuck when it comes to propelling their dreams forward. We're talking with Ryan Bilello about just this idea of networking and just being a pretty awesome person in order to be noticed, just being awesome and following through with what people ask. In order to get noticed and kind of get on their radar, whether it's a big influencer or if it's an influencing peer. Toshia says, hey, fellow dreamers, exactly what I've been looking for. I'm glad. Ryan, this is good stuff. I've been working on this without realizing I was doing it. Yes, Blake, I've seen you do that. Connie, I agree. I listen and comment when I think I make sense. We're established 5 years in and hit a plateau. Oh, very good. So this is perfect. James says that he does this on Twitter, and he says he needs to localize it though. And James, I've heard a little bit of your story, and I totally agree. It is something else to take it and localize it. So Ryan, let's go to the next section here. The first R is respond. What's the next one?
The next one is resonate. And what I mean by that is, again, we're trying to separate ourselves from everyone else. We're trying to stand out. It's almost like the Where's Waldo, where you got a lot of people, but sometimes it's really hard to pick out that one person who's a little bit different. And it's our responsibility to make ourselves stand out and look a little bit different when they're looking at everybody who's engaged with their content. And so I take this approach, and this is probably I probably have the most fun doing this because I feel like I'm a kind of a goofball guy, is I love finding unique, quirky, nerdy things that influencers are passionate about or excited about. Things that are totally off topic, that aren't necessarily related to their brand, don't have anything to do with the product. It almost is like you're getting them behind the scenes where they almost lift the veil a little bit and give you an inside look of who they really are. And so if you have an opportunity, and you can find these anywhere, you can find these in a book, on a podcast. If you engage with someone's content enough, you will pick up on some of these little quirky things. And if one of them resonates with you, you need to interact with them on that and kind of just go a little bit deeper with it. Not obsessively. You don't become one of those people who's like a crazy fanatic on this one point and never talk about anything else, because that's not what you want. But you want to let them know, like, hey, I get what you're saying, like that resonates with me too. So here's an example that I've used is I recently read Jon Acuff's latest book called Do Over, and it's a great book. I loved every moment of it, but there are a couple moments where I really connected with him based on references he made to things in pop culture. So if you were a kid that grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, you may or may have not seen this, but there was a really cheesy arm wrestling movie with Sylvester Stallone called Over the Top.
Yes.
And John makes a reference to this movie. He doesn't even say the name of the title, so you really have to know what he's talking about in order to connect with this. He just talks about an arm wrestler turning his hat backwards. And that's like the signature move of Sylvester Stallone when he's like going into like serious I'm gonna break your arm mode as he turns the hat from front to back. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I've never connected and met anybody who's mentioned Over the Top, knows what it is or anything. And here Jon Acuff, this successful writer, is like putting it in his book. So now like when John's on Periscope or he's tweeting stuff out, like once in a while I'll just throw it in. When people are asking all these serious questions about writing on his broadcasts on Periscope, I'll throw something in like, what I'll throw in a random quote or a line of like, what's the name of your trucking company, or do you take your daughters out on the road, or how much are you bench lifting? Go ahead.
What about this one? I own you.
Yeah. Yeah, that one. Or has he ever drank in a quart of Pennzoil oil? Like all those things that go on in there. It's
John
like
Grizzly, the guy who drank the can of oil. That's John Grizzly.
Yeah, and so it's like, so that's my funny thing where I'm resonating with John. I try not to go over the top with it, but it's like, man, if I ever meet John,
pun intended?
Yeah. No, not really. I didn't even realize that. So like, if I ever meet John, I'm not going to talk to him about queso or his orange jacket or all the other things that people always want to talk to him about. I'm going to ask him about Over the Top. Like, when did he see it? How did he learn about the movie? What's the backstory to this? And that's my connection point with him. So feel free to just be off topic a little bit with an influencer. Feel free to resonate with them. Sometimes you may even connect with something more serious. Maybe they had a death in the family. Maybe they had somebody who dealt with cancer. Something like that, where you can take the meat. You kind of take it off the reservation of the product and the business and say, you're just a person. I want to connect with you as a person, not as a customer, business owner, but as a person to person.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, man. I definitely resonate with that. Was that the second one, resonate? Is that what you titled it?
Yeah, resonate.
So, I mean, I'm totally feeling that. And it becomes a little bit easier when you're talking with somebody and stuff just kind of naturally comes up. But I think what you're talking about is less, looking for the natural stuff, because that's what Jon Acuff naturally talks about is the queso, and looking for the more subtle things, the more glimpses into somebody's personality. And I know one of the things that we were talking about as we were putting together your guide was just this idea of, helping people maybe even see some of those things. So like, give me a couple examples. I mean, don't go too long into it, but give me a couple examples of the 29 people who are on your list. What are the names and like one thing that they're kind of subtly interested in?
Let me give you one. Pat Flynn. He talked about on an episode of his podcast with Chris Ducker. He talked about this bug out bag he has, and essentially it's a bag he's purchased. And it has all the stuff he needs if ever like zombies attacked or the end of the world came. Like, literally, he has everything he needs in this bag. And somebody came on his show, or he connected with somebody who specializes in doomsday business, and he bought a bug out bag. And so he talked about it, and Chris Ducker was making fun of him. And I'm like, I have my own beliefs about end times and all this stuff. So this idea of this bug out bag just stuck with me. And I joke with him every now and then about it. And I probably more so tease him about it with Chris, and we'll say, do you fit inside your bug out bag, or like, do you have marshmallows, or I just random stuff where we talk about the bug out bag. Another one, I were to think of another one that I connected with that's just kind of resonating with. Grant Baldwin is one of the first things I learned about him when I went to his About page is he's a huge Friends fanatic. He loves the show Friends. And he said that he could beat anybody in Friends Seen It. And me and my wife played that all the time while we were dating, and once in a while now that we're married. And so it was like an instant connection point that this guy is so crazy about Friends that he plays the board game. So that was my first in with him is, I will take you on anytime, anywhere in Friends Seen It as long as I can bring my wife with, because I'm not as good as she is at it. And so it's been an instant kind of connection, and our relationship has grown from there just based off of the fact that we both love the show Friends.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay, so what would you say for me?
What would I say for you? I love the connection that you have with your boys. That's probably been the biggest thing for me to watch is your love for baseball. Has been probably a really good reminder as far as I interact with my boys. I'm in a little bit of a different situation with my kids not being legally or biologically mine yet. But that's probably been my connection point with you. I think I'm probably able to be more off the cuff with you on anything than any of the other guys, where I can just kind of blurt out whatever I'm feeling. But I don't know if you have any show fetishes or bug out bags or anything like that yet that I've stumbled across. I think we joke about how our wives don't like being online.
That's true.
They don't like being on camera. Although Andrea's pretty good about Periscope now, but initially
she's a riot, man. If you guys aren't following Andrea, Ryan's wife, she's a riot. What's her username?
It's Andrea Blow. I'll type it in real quick so people can see it. But yeah, she's kind of sharing her own story on Periscope right now, which is awesome because she's not fully immersed into a full social media network. She does Facebook because her friends or family are there, but I've been trying to get her on Twitter, and that hasn't worked. And Periscope, she's actually said, okay, I'm jumping on this, and she's enjoyed it.
Yeah, she's been doing a good job. So so you guys are tuning in. What kind of questions do you guys have about this Resonate piece, or do you have examples of how it's worked, how you've seen it work, or even more fun, maybe share one of the things that you think Ryan resonates with, the things that you're looking at,
there you go.
Like, what does Ryan resonate with? What does he connect with? It'd be interesting. Connie says that, yes, we like Andrea. So I agree with that. We do like Andrea. She's
good.
Pretty dang good. So so if you guys have any questions about this Resonate piece, I mean, go ahead and feel free to just start typing them in right now. Or if you've got some questions, maybe a little bit unrelated, we may hit it here in the next point, or we may answer it right now. But this idea here of power networking, let's go off to how did you guys get started? So Sunflower Sherelle asks, Ryan, how did you guys get started? Or so it's Rachel, Sunflower Rachel. And she says, oh, here, real quick. Connie says, he is straightforward instead of fluffing the topics. James says, presence, he is always in a scope. So Rachel says, how did we get started? So Ryan, why don't you actually share how you kind of got started in this online game and networking and kind of building your brand and such?
Well, the networking thing came from being offline, just from my interactions with different people through jobs, through some of the church communities that I was involved in, and I really, probably a couple of years ago, came to the point where I was like, pretty much every success I've had has been from who I know and not what I know. Even down to the fact of meeting my wife, Andrea, it was because she knew my roommate. So it's not even, so that's when it started clicking with me, is how intentional and how valuable relationships can be, because you don't know what's on the other side of that relationship. Not trying to use them or take advantage of them, but there's a lot of power in relationships. And so I kind of went away from that as I jumped into wanting to start my own business, as I started pursuing things online, and that was kind of came to a point where I was doing so many things on my own that I realized this is just not the way that I'm going to do it. I'm going to burn myself out if I keep going at this. And really, to be honest, as I've thought about this, people have been asking me this question the last couple months. It's really as I've been able to almost verbally process on Periscope my thoughts and what I'm learning and where I'm gifted at, and some of the things that I've been doing offline, and bringing it online. And so whether my viewers or my followers are fans of it or not, it's almost like it's almost been like a diary for me, almost, where I've kind of just bounced things off of them and see how they resonate. And as I've shared kind of my connections, shared how I've met this person, or how I've interacted with person, or what this person is like to talk to, or some of the things along that, people have said, oh, well, that's great, or how did you do that, or what? And that's when I my ears start perking, is when someone starts asking you a lot of questions. You have to start thinking, okay, I always forget, if it's easy for you, that may be something that you're gifted at, because not everybody's going to say that that's easy for them. And so that was kind of the encouragement or the affirmation that I needed to say, okay, why don't you start processing and thinking through what is it that you do as far as networking, connecting with people that you think is natural, and start writing those things down, and what does that look like? Could you teach other people how to do that?
Yeah, that's good, man. That's really, really good. Just giving some tangible descriptions, some tangible titles to what it is that you naturally do well. And that's one of the things that we talk about for so many people who are, afraid to broadcast on Periscope, or kind of holding back from doing their first scope because they don't know what they want to talk about. We always talk about, well, what are you good at? What are the things that you just naturally know? And so this idea of leaning into, hey, people are starting to ask me questions. What do I actually know? And using Periscope as a medium to fill that out. And so, Rachel, we're talking with Ryan, but just to give you a brief idea of how I got started, it's very similar to Ryan in the sense of I realized that I had something to offer. I came back from a conference with several other people who were sharing my same marketing type of position at the organization that I was at. And when I was there, I realized that a lot of the things that I was doing instinctively were best practices, and I did them without realizing they were best practices. I was just doing them naturally. I was going down, it's kind of like I was just, putting my finger up and like, okay, I think this is the right way to go. And it turned out that was the right way. And so I realized that, man, I've got a lot of knowledge here. There's a lot of things that I'm doing that could really benefit other people. So I just started to write, and I started to get on Twitter and share my thoughts, because I figured, you know what, if I would have appreciated somebody like this coming around and helping me out when I got started, I know there's somebody else who would appreciate me doing it. So it was just kind of putting myself out there. And before you know it, you find people who are attracted to your voice. You might be saying the exact same thing as somebody else, but you find that your unique voice attracts a certain type of person to you. And I think when we're talking about influencers, Ryan, the really cool thing is while there might be certain people who are super high profile, like a John Acuff or like a Chris Ducker, the reality is there's plenty of other people out there evangelizing the same type of message that these guys are doing. And you may connect with them more closely than you would connect with one of the major person. And that opens up just the idea of don't limit. I mean, I guess this is a kind of along the same lines, but don't limit your network to only the major players.
Yeah.
Expand your network and expand your relationships to people who are your entrepreneurial, your dreamer, your online peers. So any comments on that? And if not, or if you want to, we can move into the third point.
No, I mean, you've kind of summarized it pretty well there. I think we could roll on into the third point if you're ready.
Cool, man. Well, let's roll into it. Let's go to the third point.
So the third one, which is probably offers the ability to have the most in-depth conversation with an influencer, is to report. And what do I mean by that? A lot of these influencers, whether they're big names like Dave was saying, or they're just other people that are in your niche that are in the game that are maybe a little farther down the road than you, is they're putting out a ton of resources, a ton of content, a ton of freebies, a ton of podcasts, a ton of lead magnets, they're putting tons and tons and tons of stuff out. And the reality is that if you looked at the response that they get from what they're doing, I mean, a lot of them are successful, and I admire the work that they're doing, but I think some people, based on their response to what they're learning, is they look at these people as more of entertainers, like, oh, that sounded good, or that was fun to listen to, or I liked reading that for a few minutes, but that's as far as it goes. And if you're really serious about being successful in your business, about making your product the best in your industry, if you're all about creating a resource that's going to educate and teach people to be the best at their specific skill in their field, you've got to take what you're learning and you've got to go back to these people and say, I applied and I took these 5 steps and I applied what you said and I implemented them into my life, into my system, into my routine, and here's what happened. And give them dialogue back on it and say, here's very specifically what worked, here's why it worked, here's something I learned from it, here's something that maybe I didn't do well, or I failed at this, or I tried this and it didn't work out like you saw. And then from there you can say, well, do you have something? What would you say? Or how would you respond? Or I'm still stuck. Can you help me? Or what do you think? They're going to say, wow, this person that's the type of people they want. They want to interact with followers, with customers, with people in their community who are taking what they're saying seriously and applying it. That's the whole idea of being an influencer, is that you're changing the way someone does something. You're impacting the way people are doing things. And so when an influencer sees that they have legitimate and real influence over someone, they're going to want to connect with that person and continue to engage with them. And so report back to an influencer. Get into the meat of what they're doing. It may take some time for you to do it. It may take some effort on your end. But that's the whole point, is how bad do you really want to connect with this person? How much do you really want to get to know them? How much do you really want to see if what they're saying is actually truth? I mean, are they full of it? Are they just throwing stuff out because it's entertaining? Or is what they're saying really applicable to other people besides themselves? So report back to influencers.
I love that, man. The thing is if we start thinking, is this being disingenuous? Is this, manipulating or things like that? What I really love is you're advocating not for easy, cheap solutions. You're advocating for relationship building. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to, is what you have actually laid out is a framework for building an online relationship. We're talking not necessarily just influencers. We're talking anyone, period, right?
Yep.
And it just so happens that we don't write down the steps that we use to become friends with someone, especially when we were younger. I mean, when we get older, we understand a little bit of what that looks like, but it just kind of naturally happens. What you've done is you've kind of gone and said, okay, what are the natural steps that we take in order to kind of become friends with people? And then you've applied that to the influencer and the networking conversation. I think it's just fantastic. So if you guys are just joining us, or if you've kind of been hanging out, now's the time to go ahead and ask your questions and let us know, let Ryan know, what questions you may have You know, if you're trying to connect with somebody right now, if you have any questions on, you know, hey, should I start tweeting them? Should I direct message them? Things like that. This is the time. I mean, right now, this is a moment of education. This is a moment of learning. This is the moment. These are the moments when you and I grow. One of the things that I've found, Ryan, that I do is I register for it. Like when certain people do webinars or do giveaways or whatnot, I register for all of them because two things happen. One, they see me as a VIP, as somebody who's active in their customer relationship manager. They see me as someone who's a stakeholder, so to speak. Whether or not I've purchased, they still see me as somebody who is invested. And then also it gives me another opportunity to learn and to grow. And so I found that that's huge. And guys, this is what it is right now. Having Ryan here available to talk. If you've got questions, if you are trying to grow an aspect of your business and you're looking to network, you know, this is the moment to ask questions. Ryan, would you tell me very briefly about the 29 influencers? Because that's the piece here. But actually, before you do that, James Milner has a question. He says, should I connect with local people in my market via Twitter, even though that person may not be the decision maker? So what would you say there, Ryan? Someone looking to connect with someone in their local market, in their niche, they may not be the decision maker. Is it still worth connecting with them?
I would say yes, because from the very basic, we're talking about relationships. Are you able to add value to them? Is a thought you got to think of, and that's what I go into with a lot of relationships where I'm initially connecting with someone. Is how can I add value to this person? Because my thought is they may not be the main influencer, they may not be the person that is ultimately able to help me, but it may turn into something where it's going to benefit down the road for both of us. You don't know what that person's going to do over the next year or two, and one conversation with you, two interactions with you at a networking event can turn into a business relationship, can turn into a client, can turn into a contract, can turn into that person. That person ends up knowing the one person you're wanting to connect with and says, let me introduce you to. And so, yeah, I would say there's a lot of times where there's a lot more resistance connecting with the influencer or the decision maker. There's a significantly less amount of resistance if you go one step down and connect to the person that knows that influencer.
Yeah, that's good. One of the things I noticed, man, is I know that I might not be able to get noticed by person A or person one or, you know, person top or whatever. But if I get enough people who are, like you're saying, one step below to know my name, to have a vague idea of what it is that I do, I think it's very possible that there could be a conversation with that influencer and 3 or 4 of these number 2 people where my name would come up and the influencer would be like, that name, why do I know that name? And it's just this idea of kind of blanketing the market and making sure that your name is out there. You know, there's this scene, I don't know if you ever watch Arrested Development, but there's this scene in Arrested Development where Maybe says to her dad, Tobias, hey, Dad, you got to go down to the studio, you know, talk up the Fumke name, get the name out there, hang out by the water cooler. And so Tobias, who's this, you know, overly flamboyant, nerdy guy, psychologist turned actor, goes down to the studio, hangs out by the water cooler, and he says, boy, that Tobias Fumke is all anybody's ever talking about. Who is that Tobias Fumke? Wow, this Tobias Fumke, he sure is an up-and-coming talent. And later on in the episode, Maybe the daughter is just roaming around the office, and this big head honcho comes in and says, "Who are you?" She goes, "Maybe Fumke." She goes, "Oh," he goes, "Oh, you're the Fumke everybody's been talking up around here." And it's just a funny scene, but it's just an idea of, if you get on enough people's radar, you will find that your name comes up in different conversations. And I said this on the Periscope, Ryan, and I don't know if you had anything to do with this or some of my other Periscope friends did, but I was in a Chris Ducker conversation earlier today and just listening, just casually listening. And all of a sudden, he says, "Who are the best Periscopers out there?" And something mentioned my name, and Chris Ducker goes, Dave Shrine, Dave Shrine. I know that name. Why have I heard that name? Somebody quick, tell me what he does. And obviously I jumped in, but it was just that idea of, you get enough coverage out there, you're eventually going to have your name mentioned in conversations that you might not have ever been mentioned anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's guy I'm learning from right now. His name is Jason. I think it's Gainard. I still can't pronounce it right, but it's Gainard. And he says, you can go broke, you can be bankrupt. He said he was at a point where he had no money, but nobody could ever take away his relationships. He can have the integrity of his word and his relationships, and nobody's going to be able to take that from him. And so that's my mindset when I'm going into this, is that relationships, he says your net worth is in your network.
Say that again.
Your net worth is in your network.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
That's powerful stuff, man. So tell me about these 29 influencers. And obviously people can go to your website. They can get the ebook, and they can see this list of 29 influencers with the descriptions that you've written up. But just tell me a little bit how that's meant to be used, why you put that together.
I put that together, to help people see. There's descriptions with each of them. So hopefully people are going to see that I've established a bit of a relationship with them. We're not best friends. I'm not going to their weddings or their kids' bar mitzvah or anything like that. But they're going to see these 3 points, the respond, the resonate, and the report. They're going to see those playing out in the descriptions of those influencers. They're also going to see that they span the gamut of as far as there's going to be ones you go, oh yeah, of course I would expect that person to be on this list. There's going to be other ones that would be like, I've never heard of that person ever. And that's the whole point of influencers, is that I just started watching a couple episodes of House of Cards, and one of those first few episodes.
Oh,
yeah, I know.
That's intense, man. That's good.
Pretty good show. He says that he's more concerned with power than money. He's more concerned with influence, having control, having input, than having money. And so that's what I want people to see, is that they don't have to be a six-figure entrepreneur. They don't have to have a #1 podcast or a New York Times bestseller. There are probably a majority of people on that list that you've never heard of, but have made significant impact in my life and have brought significant value to my life. And I would like to think on some level I've added value to theirs as well, even though we're not best of friends.
Are these Periscope influencers, or are these influencers online in general?
They're all over. So some of them have personal brands. They have a very well-established website. Some of them are writers. Some of them are in the middle of building their own brand. Some of them are Periscopers. Some people that are broadcasting pretty well. People that I had not known before I started using that platform. And then there's others, like I was saying, that are doing a great job that I'm learning from in this idea of networking and using your relationships to help others. So they're all over the place. It's not just Periscope.
Very cool. So guys, we're going to wrap up. We're going to get to wrapping up here. But now is the time. If you have any remaining questions, go ahead and type them into the comment section there. We'll go ahead and get to them. Ryan, where can people go check out your to get this ebook that you've put together? Where do they go? What do they do?
You can go. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can check out the website. You can go to Ryan Bolello. That's B as in boy, ILELLO.me. Or more simply, if you don't like spelling my difficult last name, you can text my first name. You can text Ryan to 66866, and you will get that. You will get that ebook right in your email inbox.
Very cool, man.
So those are the 2 ways to do it.
So guys, I really wanted to do this with Ryan. It's something that that I figured would be very helpful for all of us using Periscope. And you know, I've been building my network for the last. Hey, Ryan, you want to type it into the comment section?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think I finished my thought. It's ryanbolello.me.
Oh.
And I don't know if I said .com or if I just spelled my name, but it's ryanbolello.me.
Awesome. And then you'll type. You want to type in the texting piece there too?
Sure.
So I've been networking, building my network for a while. I've got a great tribe on Twitter. I got a great tribe on my website. Got a great tribe on my email. and on Periscope now. But I found, listening to some of Ryan's tips, it's things that I was either doing instinctively and now I can be more intentional about them, or it's things that I had never really thought of. Like the report piece is one that I had never thought of, that I had never really looked at as something that I could be doing, following up, learning, growing with whatever these influencers are putting out, and then going back and saying, hey, this is what actually happened, be it good or be it bad. This is what actually happened when I used whatever it is that I got my hands on. And so that's been pretty awesome. So if you guys have any questions, I'm not seeing any come through here, so I think we may wind it down. Y'all, if this has been helpful, if this has been beneficial, if you have some people who you think need to hear this, go ahead and take this time right now to invite, to swipe and invite specific people. If you think your entire network would benefit from it, go ahead and invite everybody. It will show up in their replay for the next 24 hours, in their replay feed for the next 24 hours. And that's just fantastic, because one of the things that I've realized about networking, Ryan, is that there are a lot of people who do exactly what I do. And so if I think of how am I going to respond to this, that usually tells me how somebody else is going to respond to that. And the way that I've kind of started to think about that with Periscope is at night when I'm getting ready to go to bed and I'm kind of winding down and I'm not looking to think, I start browsing all of the replays in my local feed to see which ones I want to watch. And I figured, you know what? There's probably plenty of people who at the end of the day, that's all they're doing, is they're looking for something to watch for 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And that's where I want to be. That's where I want to show up. And that's where I try to help Great Scope show up. Great value. Nice to hear some like-minded thinking individuals. Appreciate you. Thanks so much for that comment. I appreciate it. Ryan, any last words? Folks, write your questions right now if you have any. It's okay if there's no questions. Just give us mad crazy hearts if you loved it and you don't have any questions. Ryan, do you have any final input or final thoughts to share with folks?
I would say, don't wait to get connected with someone. Even if you think they can't add any value or you can't add any value, just the basic idea of being able to connect and just bounce ideas off of someone. I mean, that goes back to probably the roots of our relationship, Dave, is I had no clue what value you would be adding to me. I had no clue what I would be adding to you. But we just started bouncing ideas off each other. We just kind of started sharing, getting to know each other. And that's probably, I was saying this earlier with someone else, probably been one of the most encouraging things for me as I've ventured or begun to venture out on my own is realizing I'm not in a silo. As an entrepreneur, I can't get stuck in a silo by myself. I got to have people that are helping out, connecting, encouraging.
Yep, that's absolutely true, man. That silo piece, that's a really, really important piece to identify, in that networking isn't just an option. It's a necessity if you're talking about getting out there and actually trying to accomplish some sort of dream or some sort of a goal to better your life or to better use your life. Networking is definitely a part of that. You need those relationships. So, man, so RyanBalello.me, at Ryan_Balello. And then obviously here on Periscope, maybe put a couple more comments in there real quick, Ryan, so people can make sure to follow you. If you guys aren't following Ryan, make sure to tap his name when it pops up here. Again, if this was helpful, go ahead and share it with folks. Share it with individuals. If you know one or two people who really need to hear this tonight, they need this encouragement. They need to know that guys like Ryan are out there just ready and waiting to connect with them. Follow Ryan. We will continue to build our networks here. We'll continue to grow. We'll continue to network. We'll continue to build relationships, and we'll do some awesome things. So, Ryan, appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking the time. This was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I know I enjoyed myself.
I loved it, Dave. Thanks for having me on. This was a great opportunity to kind of share what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, I hope you loved it. We're going to say goodnight for now. I'm going to go hang out with my wife. I know Ryan is probably going to do the same. Appreciate you all. Thank you for hanging out, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Remember, share if you think someone's going to care. That's cheesy, and I just came up with it right now. I hope you love it. We'll see you guys. Bye.